Earth is approximately 4.6 billion years old. But most experts agree that modern humans only evolved between 200,000 to 300,000 years ago. Even in such a short amount of time, humans have moved, changed, and adapted to create the society that we live in today. Archaeologists work to help us better understand, document, and preserve human history by studying artifacts from the past. World Heritage Sites have been designated across the world to protect and appreciate cultural, historical, and scientific landmarks. These sites include the Great Barrier Reef, the Grand Canyon, the Taj Mahal, and more. Heritage sites like these are irreplaceable sources of inspiration, legacy, and life. However, many of these sites are at risk of being damaged due to the effects of climate change. Climate change is the long-term change in average weather patterns. While Earth's climate is always changing, human behavior is causing the climate to change faster than ever before. The United Nations has designated at least 31 World Heritage Sites in 29 different countries that are vulnerable to climate change. Let's take a closer look at one site facing some of these challenges right now. Venice. The city of Venice and its lagoon is located on the northeast coast of Italy. It appears to float on water as it spreads across 118 small islands, connected by bridges and canals. This iconic city is made up of architectural masterpieces, with work from some of the world's greatest artists, and attracts over 30 million tourists a year. Venice has already lost human life due to the impacts of climate change. It has also experienced damage to infrastructure and is expected to be underwater in less than 100 years. Water is the main culprit for the challenges Venice is facing. Why is that? For one, water has a high heat capacity. That means it takes a lot of energy to change the temperature of water. It's also really good at absorbing heat. As global temperatures rise due to climate change, our oceans are absorbing much of that heat. Let's take a closer look at how this works. Here, we have a balloon filled with air. When you add heat, the air will not absorb the heat very quickly. Instead, the heat will transfer to the balloon and cause it to pop. Air does not have a high heat capacity. Here we have a balloon filled with water. When you add heat, the water absorbs the heat quickly and keeps the balloon cool enough so it doesn't pop. Water has a high heat capacity. Well, what does it look like when water absorbs heat? Here we have a glass filled with water. We've placed this glass on a hot plate to increase its temperature. As the water increases in temperature, the water molecules gain energy and move further away from one another. This causes the water to take up more space and creep up the glassware. This thermal expansion is happening with our oceans, just on a much larger scale. As oceans expand and sea levels rise, coastal areas like Venice are flooding and disappearing before our eyes. Venice has a long history of flooding, dating back to before the start of human-induced climate change. Strong tides and winds cause Venice to flood periodically. These floods, called aqua altas, are becoming more intense and frequent as sea levels rise every year. In November 2019, Venice experienced an extreme aqua alta, where the water reached 6 feet above sea level, and almost 90% of the city was flooded. This resulted in loss of human life, over $1 billion in damage to infrastructure, and a sharp decrease in tourism. The climate crisis threatens the lives and livelihoods of people, not only at historic sites, but everywhere people live. More than 10% of the world's population and 40% of the US population live in a coastal area. So what can be done to protect the people, the infrastructure, and the history? Let's take a local look at how some cities are trying to mitigate this problem. Sea level rise will affect places all over the world, including here in Boston. It's predicted that Boston's sea level could rise as much as 9 inches by 2030. This will make coastal areas of Boston 4 to 5 times more likely to flood than they are today. To prepare for sea level rise, Greater Boston is using hard barriers like the Lynn Shore Drive seawall and nature-based solutions like the Belle Isle Salt Marsh to protect their communities from floods. Many communities around the world are already experiencing the effects of climate change that are in motion, but it doesn't mean there's nothing we can do. World Heritage Sites capture the resilience of the human spirit and show our ability to respond to challenges and adapt in incredible ways. We can draw inspiration from these landmarks to prepare for these changes and take decisive action to prevent further damage.